Hola. Buenos dias. And good morning. Okay. Mi nombre es Ida. I'm Ida Jones, and I serve gratefully on your worship team. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Fresno, California. Unitarian Universalists believe that loving inclusively is a spiritual practice. Here at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Fresno, we welcome you no matter your race, culture of origin, age, spiritual background, or religious beliefs. You are welcome if you are lesbian, gay, bi, trans, gender fluid, questioning, or non-binary. We welcome you no matter your disabilities, the amount of money in your bank account, or your level of education. You are welcome with or without documentation. No human being should be called illegal or labeled as an alien. Citizen or non-citizen, you are precious. You have a precious life worthy of respect, and you are welcome at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Fresno. Todos son bienvenidos aquí. Although I'm leading today's service, Reverend Tim requested a pastoral moment to address the terrible and terrifying Supreme Court decision to overturn Roe versus Wade.
Thank you, Ida. I'll be over here. You can stay put. So let me first speak from a pastoral perspective and to say to be gentle with yourselves. For those women who know what a pre-Roe America is like, this is trauma. For those women who do not know what a pre-Roe America feels like, we will be living in that reality. That is trauma. So be gentle with yourselves. This court decision is an act of violence upon all women, an act of violence upon all who have a uterus, including those who are trans or non-binary. The right to think for oneself and freely make choices about our lives is a core religious value in our Unitarian Universalist religious tradition. Unitarian Universalism believes it's immoral to take away bodily autonomy. Unitarian Universalism believes it is immoral for a government to force someone to give birth to a child. Forcing the birth of children while providing no resources for that child and their family is depravity. Reducing women to third-class citizens is an act, and I don't use this word lightly, and I rarely ever say it, it is an act of evil. Knowing that Black, Indigenous, people of color, and those who are poor will be most impacted makes this especially cruel. And so, for a moment, will you join with me in prayer or intention? Let us pray. Spirit of life, fuente de amor, creative source, infinite strength that is womb to us all. As rage and grief meet and merge within the beating of our worn and weary hearts, as fury and fear course through braved but battered spirits, we proclaim the unwavering sacredness of women's bodies and women's lives. We testify that no court ruling can take away their worth and dignity. No court ruling can take away their courage and conviction or their ageless wisdom passed down generation after generation within societies that far too frequently demean, diminish, and denigrate their very existence. We know that on this morning, the moral arc of the universe seems not just long, but irretrievably broken, hopelessly out of reach. But we also know that there is something beyond what we experience in this present moment. There is endurance, there is vision, there is youthful outrage and aged determination. There is this community of compassion and care. There is that timeless impulse moving within us, among us, and beyond us. The impulse to co-create a fairer and kinder world for all. This timeless impulse is what we call love. A love within us, among us, and beyond us. We rest in this love. Que así sea, bendito sea. May it be so, blessed be. Amen.
With those words, it's now time to say buenos dias, bonjour, and good morning to members of our church family and visitors. One of the few times I've used the French that I spent years learning. I am usually on the virtual campus where we greet each other by making comments in the chat box. If you're watching this later, remember to greet someone nearby. Our time for greeting is now. Oh, yeah. As we flow into our service this morning, may we allow the sound of the tingsha to carry us into our shared time of reflection, remembrance, and renewal.
Have you seen the old man in the closed down market? something to make you change your mind. Have you seen the old gal who walks the streets of London? Dirt in her hair and her clothes in rags. She's no time for talking. She just keeps right on walking, carrying her home in 2 carrier bags. How can you tell me you're lonely and say for you that the sun don't shine? Let me take you by the hand and lead you through the streets of London. I'll show you something to make you change your mind. In the all-night cafe at 11:15, same old man sitting there on his own, looking at the world over the rim of his teacup. Each tea lasts an hour and he wanders off alone. So how can you tell me you're lonely and say for you that the sun don't shine? Let me take you by the hand and lead you through the streets of London. I'll show you something to make you change your mind. Have you seen the old man outside the seaman's mission? Memory fading like the ribbons that he wears. In our winter city, the rain cries a little pity. One more forgotten hero in a world that doesn't care. So how can you tell me you're lonely and say for you that the sun don't shine? Let me take you by the hand and lead you through the streets of London. I'll show you something to make you change your mind.
So, good morning again, and buenos dias. You'll see a lot of me this morning. I'm Ida Jones, and I serve gratefully as a member of the worship arts team. Thank you. If you have a candle or chalice, bring it close, as we'll be lighting it soon. For today's chalice lighting, I have chosen the words of Reverend Molly Brewer, a Unitarian Universalist minister based in New England, who describes herself as fat, queer, and neurodivergent. My beloved church family and everyone, I cannot pretend, and so I will not tell you that everything is okay right now. That there's no reason to be angry, that you must be optimistic or at peace. I cannot pretend these things, and so I won't tell them to you. But now our chalice is lit, and so I ask in this moment that we remember the words of Rebecca Parker. There is a love holding us. There is a love holding all that we love. So by the light of our chalice, let us rest in that love. You will hear a much more melodious version from Marina later today. So in that spirit, I invite you to light your chalice or candle at home, and Jamie has lit the chalice for us on the Alluvial Avenue campus. Let us rise now in body or spirit and join in singing the song of praise, We'll Build a Land.
2, 3, 4. land where we bind up the broken. We'll build a land where the captives go free, where the oil of gladness dissolves all mourning. Oh, we'll build a promised land that can be. Come build a land where siblings in spirit, anointed by love, and create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. We'll build a land where we bring the good tidings to all the afflicted, all those who mourn, and we'll give them garlands instead of ashes. Oh, we'll build a land where peace is born. Come build a land where cripplings in spirit, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. We'll build a land, building up ancient cities, raising up devastations of old, restoring ruins in generations. Oh, we'll build a land of people so bold. Come build a land where siblings in spirit, anointed by love, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. Come build a land where the mantles of praises resound from spirits once faint and once weak, where like oaks of righteousness stand the people. Oh, come build a land, my people, we see. Come build a land where siblings in spirit, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream.
Please do not sit down yet. Remain standing as we join our voices in our mission statement. La misión de la Iglesia Unitaria Universalista de Fresno es amar inclusivamente, crecer espiritualmente, servir con gratitud y trabajar por la justicia. The mission of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Fresno is to love inclusively, grow spiritually, serve gratefully, and work for justice. Please be seated. Whether you are here at our Alluvial campus or attending virtually now or in the future, let us connect to our breath as we breathe in peace and breathe out love. We breathe in peace. We breathe out love. And one last time, breathing in peace and breathing out love. As we continue to breathe together in this shared sacred space of hope, possibility, and caring, let our intentional breaths carry us back to the last 7 days while we take a moment for reflection. When, during the last week, did you humbly provide assistance to another? Not grudgingly, humbly. And when, during the last week, did you humbly accept the gift of assistance from someone else? Some of us entered the Alluvial Avenue sanctuary this morning and chose to write a personal joy, concern, sorrow, or gratitude on the cards on the entranceway table. Those on our virtual campus were invited to share theirs in that chat box. If you're viewing this later, speak any joys or sorrows aloud or silently where you are. These are some of the sharings from the heart. From Saul E., the Jewish temple, and our UU church leaders make our views public today. From Jamie J., gratitude that okay, Ida in her life sending love, light, always. Okay. Lisa and Jamie are grateful we were able to visit Margaret at her amazing ranch. And Lisa and Jamie, Ida is in person in the church service today. I guess I need to come more often, huh? Okay. So we have an additional joy, gratitude that was spoken from the audience that Vicki is here in person today and is looking wonderful. Charity S. has a gratitude that 23 years ago, I was able to make an informed choice about whether I wanted to keep my pregnancy and become a parent, and joy that Tommy will be 23 years old on Tuesday. Happy birthday in advance. From Charity Asaro, Charity S. Asaro, that SCOTUS overturned Roe versus Wade, taking away the ability for many people who can get pregnant to choose safe, legal abortion. From Deborah S., disappointment in the gun law just passed by Congress. They could have done so much more to truly protect their constituents. Deborah S., despair at the 50-year-old's step backwards in women's reproductive rights. We have our work cut out for us, and I'm just getting tired of fighting this battle. Thank you to everyone. Let us also remember our beloved church members and friends who are living with health challenges, compromised mobility, or other impacts to their well-being. We lift up Donna P., Edith H., William H., Laura G., Glenda R., Pat M., Al G., Brandon E., Josephine J. And then, looking beyond our congregation, there are two recent Supreme Court decisions that you have already discussed that will have a significant effect on everyone in the country. Reverend Tim and several in the comment cards mentioned the first, the Supreme Court's 6-3 decision to overturn Roe versus Wade, and to thus take from women the right to control our own bodies. It is disheartening and frustrating. This decision will have a significant impact on women of color who do not have easy access to safe, healthy alternatives. This decision will have a significant impact on women with disabilities, 80% of whom experience sexual assault during their lifetimes. It will have an impact on all women who have been victimized through sexual assault. We grieve with sorrow and react with anger to that decision. The second is the Supreme Court's decision that infringes on states' rights to enact laws regulating gun ownership. For years, New York has required a license for individuals who wanted to carry a concealed weapon. The Supreme Court decided, even in the wake of the recent large numbers of victims of gun violence, that there should be fewer limitations on gun ownership. So they invalidated New York's law. This impact has then been complicated because Congress did pass a relatively minor law to regulate gun ownership rather. So Congress versus the Supreme Court. This will be interesting. As we hold all that has been shared here this morning and all that lies in the silence of our hearts, we light our candle of community. We also light this second candle to honor the 6,349,000 people worldwide who have died in the COVID-19 pandemic. This includes more than 1,040,000 citizens of the United States. As these candles burn, please join together in our call to meditation. There is love.
3, 4.
There is a love holding me. There is a love holding all that I love. There is a love holding all. I rest in this love. I who know
Let us join together in a spirit of reflection or prayer. We live in a world in which we experience joys and experience sorrows. As you may know, my oldest son passed into the mysteries of death 2 years, 7 months, and 26 days ago. He would have been 49 in May. The longer he is gone, the more I miss him. However, a joy is that I live with another son and his daughters. And still another joy is that my daughter is here with me, enjoying, I hope, this service today. And other joys include being here in person, seeing my church family, while other weeks I'm with my virtual church family. Life can be challenging and can be beautiful, sometimes at the same time. So I'm encouraging you to find and embrace love in friends, family, strangers, and in nature and the beautiful things around us, because that's what's so cool about the world. May it be so. Blessed be. Amen. Ashe.
I will walk the way, love will guide the way. I will walk the way, love will guide the way. I will walk the way, love will guide the way. I will walk the way, love will guide the way. I will walk the way, love will guide the way. Love guides the way. I will walk the way, love will guide the way. Love guides the way. I will walk the way. Love guides the way. I will walk the way. Love guides the way. I'm walking, I'm guided by love. Oh, my way, I'm walking, I'm guided by love. Oh, my way, I'm walking, I'm guided I'm walking, I'm I will walk the way, love will guide the way. I will walk the way, love will guide the way.
That home is where the heart is. There's no place like home, made famous in the movies The Wizard of Oz and Oz. We recently purchased and moved into another home in Elk Grove. This home is a sanctuary, and the backyard is large enough for a pool, although I feel incredibly guilty about the amount of water that's used in the pool, and who knows what the future holds when it comes to swimming pools. A hopefully slug-free garden, and lots of trees and bushes. It is an oasis of love, peace, and gratitude. I frequently count the blessings I've received from the universe that I can live comfortably with my youngest son and his 2 children. At the same time, I also consider the lives of those who do not have a place to call home. I am amazed and saddened by the fact that our country makes the commitment to spend billions of dollars to kill people in other countries, but is unwilling to make a fraction of that commitment to ensure that everyone has a home to live in. Thank you. I recall one of my clients when I was working for legal aid in Nebraska. She was a young single parent doing her best to work full-time and take care of her children so that they could have a better life. What she told me about her housing was heartbreaking. She lived in the apartment of a then well-known slumlord in Omaha. Among other things, she would wake up in the morning and would have to shake the roaches out of her children's clothing before she could get them dressed. The apartment building was ultimately condemned, but it took an incredibly long time. Home for her was not the home sweet home of fairy tales, but I respected her so much for all she did. She was working incredibly hard to make a better life for herself and for her children especially. We at Legal Aid were ultimately able to get that apartment building condemned and torn down, because even when it was condemned, he would still rent apartments. So it was ultimately torn down. Let us rise in body or spirit and join in singing, "We Shall Be Known."
Two, three, four.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who rode the smoke among these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now, it is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive deep within the earth. It is time now, it is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves within this well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love.
Thank you. You may be seated. Our guest speaker today is Dr. Matthew Ari Jendian. Part of the sociology faculty at Fresno State since 1995, Dr. Jendian is currently a full professor and was the founding director of the Humanics program in philanthropic and community-based leadership, teaching courses on race and ethnicity, social class and inequality, among other topics. Dr. Jendian has authored 2 books, Becoming American, Remaining Ethnic, and #Think, Critical Thinking About Social Problems. Dr. Jendian is also one of the founding members of the Faith in the Valley, Fresno, is a faculty advisor for Fresno State NAACP chapter, and has served as a board member for several national and local community-based organizations, Fresno Housing Alliance, and Fresno Metro Ministry. He is a passionate and committed social justice leader in Fresno. Dr. Jendian and I have worked together on several projects at the university. Please welcome Dr. Matthew Jendian.
What a pleasure to be with you this morning on a joyous day and to be introduced by my Fresno State colleague, Dr. Ida Jones, and my Faith in the Valley, to be invited by my Faith in the Valley colleague, Reverend Tim. Just a pleasure to be with you. Thank you both for your leadership. My name is Matthew Jindian, and I was born and raised in Fresno, and I'm here to speak with you about the fight for affordable, safe, decent, and accessible housing. City leadership must understand what economists and sociologists and everyday folk already know, that home ownership and stable housing are key to living a dignified life and creating intergenerational opportunity beyond ourselves. The acquisition of assets and allows individuals to more effectively function and reduces their susceptibility to poverty. And as with most things in life, it takes some to get some. And the opportunities to acquire such assets have been in short supply for lower income individuals and people of color in particular. Under the Homestead Act of 1862, a federal government initiated wealth building policy. White families wishing to farm in the Midwest and West were provided 160 to 320 acres of land at little or no cost, while African Americans, Native Americans, and Mexican Americans in the West and Southwest were excluded. Between the 1860s and 1930s, almost 1.5 million acres of land, 1.5 million households were given titles to 246 million acres of land that had been taken from other people, enabling those families to build their future and their children's future by handing down property to the next generation, improving the lives of millions and playing an important role in the economic development of the United States as a whole. It's estimated that today, 46 million Americans are descendants and beneficiaries of those who received these government-granted homesteads. Blight and discrimination linked to substandard housing is nothing new in Fresno. Bill Sechrist, local historian at the Fresno County Public Library, traced those conditions back more than 130 years. Fresno's substandard housing crisis has been made in the making since the city's birth in 1885. It's a story of poverty, of racism, of urban sprawl, and neglect. The decay was there at the beginning. In the late 19th century, Fresno's Chinatown. Fresno's Chinatown on what was then the west side became a Tenderloin district. Police were bribed to ignore the prostitution, opium dens, gambling, and other vices happening there, and the lack of police presence meant slumlords could exploit people. Much like other towns throughout California, substandard housing in Fresno at first was a byproduct of discrimination. If you were white, you lived on the east side of the tracks, where the courthouse was, where all the retail and the best neighborhoods were being established. If you were Chinese or African American, you lived on the other side of the tracks, on the west side. Private property deeds included restrictive covenants prohibiting anyone who wasn't white from purchasing homes in certain neighborhoods, including Sunnyside and Fig Garden. Low-income and poverty-stricken neighborhoods are often isolated and segregated from the surrounding region and the opportunities to various resources. The Brazilianization effect of the geographic bifurcation, segregating the prosperous from the low income and the disadvantaged, has increased in American society through the rise of gated and walled communities. In 1936, James Helming, a junior field agent from a federal agency formed under the New Deal to bring opportunity to Americans, was charged with making sense of Fresno's shifting demographics. Armenian, Russian, Italian residents were moving north. Black and Hispanic populations were growing and expanding in their place. And Helming's agency, the Homeowners Loan Corporation, drew color-coded maps to determine who would get the credit necessary to buy houses. White neighborhoods were shaded green, and black neighborhoods were shaded red. White buyers in those areas were approved for loans. The neighborhoods with large minority populations were denied mortgages, labeled undesirable. Fresno's west side was red. And in his report, Helming wrote, quote, "Almost exclusive concentration of colored races are present in Fresno's west side." He noted in the more affluent areas like Fig Garden, quote, "Residential lots were sold under careful deed restrictions as to race. If a neighborhood didn't have these restrictions, he noted that they were at risk of, quote, infiltration of a lower grade population." Click. These racially restrictive covenants that you see on the screen were a prime mechanism in preventing people of color from buying homes in white neighborhoods. And nearly a century after Helming published his report, today, the gulf between white, black, and brown residents remains embedded in Fresno's geography. We do that better than almost any other place in the country. And it's not by accident. We have done a very good job of segregating the poor and the people of color. In the 1950s, construction of Highway 99, which runs between the west side and the rest of Fresno, destroyed more than 20 blocks of existing housing. Later, at the height of the Cold War, a former member of the Fresno County Board of Supervisors who referred to Highway 99 and the railroad tracks as Fresno's Berlin Wall. In the decades that follow, city plans and zoning ordinances kept Southwest Fresno isolated. And they catered to its affluent white neighborhoods. They concentrated wealth and development farther north. There, the city built shopping malls, hospitals, college campuses. The Southwest got slaughterhouses and meatpacking plants. According to Richard Rothstein, author of The Color of Law that you see on the screen, the geographic, economic, and racial isolation of a city's black and brown residents is a pattern duplicated across the country thanks to government policies. Today, some argue that Shaw or even Herndon Avenue has replaced the railroad tracks as the city's dividing line. White and wealthy above it, poor black and Hispanic below it. A 1970s era city planning document actually referred to Shaw Avenue as Fresno's Mason-Dixon line. There are exceptions and pockets of prosperity and poverty above and below Shaw Avenue, but still, the side of the street that one lives on matters. Redlining provided conditions that led to substandard housing. You generally don't have as much stake in the house and neighborhood when you're paying month to month. The mortgage industry as a whole contributed to that transition from owner-occupied to renter-occupied and invented the investment in those communities where predominantly people of color were living. Racism has kept some landlords from caring about their property and their tenants. The less you see yourself in other people, the less you are likely to empathize and assist them. By the 1940s, Fresno had a severe housing shortage, compounded by the fact that neighborhoods outside the city limits grew at a much faster rate than the incorporated central city areas. Meanwhile, the federal government and Fresno housing authorities began to replace substandard housing with public projects, but it wasn't enough. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King said that the nation must recognize the urgency of the moment. And in the fight for civil rights, if the dream for equality for all is to become a reality, and in his address to more than 3,000 people at a Witness of Faith for Freedom rally in Radcliffe Stadium in Fresno on June 1st, 1964, King told the audience, "Now is the time to make brotherhood a reality." The mission statement of this congregation embodies that spirit of brotherhood and sisterhood and love for your neighbor. The California Fair Housing Act, actually, you're on the right one, of 1963 called for an end to racial discrimination in all public and private housing in the state. However, Prop 14, passed the following year, replaced the act. And Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King was in Fresno denouncing Prop 14 and racial segregation. The Fresno Bee called this march and rally the largest civil rights rally in San Joaquin Valley history. After Prop 14 was declared unconstitutional by the state Supreme Court in 1966, you could live anywhere you wanted, but the lesser priced, more modern parts of the housing stock ended up getting abandoned. And as the quality of the neighborhood sagged, people continued northward. And that same pattern is going on today. Racial segregation has been replaced with economic segregation. Haphazard northward development meant empty parcels remained within the city for years and contributed to blight. Older homes were sometimes abandoned and allowed to decay. Others were purchased by low-income people without the means to maintain them. Despite the fair housing rally and the end of racial discrimination in housing by law, discrimination in fact continued, and Fresno's northward sprawl gained momentum in the 1970s while local government struggled to balance its resources among various neighborhoods in the city. The area shaded in blue represents Fresno in 1946. Notice the downtown triangle is the main part of Fresno. The areas shaded in red show how Fresno has grown since. Before 1946, people assumed growth was good for everybody, but growth doesn't automatically solve old problems. A city's general plan, its land use policies, zoning ordinances play a role in the extent and concentration of poverty within its boundaries. As more subdivisions and shopping centers went up north of Shaw and were annexed into the city found itself having to allocate more and more resources to the northern suburbs at the expense of inner city investment. The Bee reported in 1992 that the city had ignored more than 1,300 homes that violated basic health and safety codes, many in the older Lowell and Jefferson neighborhoods. And you can see from this slide that Fresno's segregation, particularly between whites and blacks and whites and Hispanics, hasn't changed much in the past 30 years. The darker the color on this map, the larger the percentage of white residents. The darker the color on this map, the higher the percentage of Latino residents. The darker the color on this map, the higher the percentage of black residents. The darker the color on this map, the higher percentage of Asian residents. There are some census tracts in our city where no Asians live, or no black people live, or only 1% is white. In 2005, the Brookings Institution revealed Fresno had the highest concentration of poverty of any U.S. city, a phenomenon in which 40% or more of a neighborhood's residents live below the poverty line. That's $27,750 for a family of four in 2022. And nearly half of all those living below the poverty line in Fresno in 2005 were concentrated in 22 identifiable neighborhoods shown in the darkest shades of brown on the map on the left. Our concentrated poverty in Fresno was almost entirely in South Fresno and disproportionately impacted the non-white population. Hence the moniker of a tale of two cities that Fresno Mayor Alan Autry used. These neighborhoods did not appear by accident. Do not be fooled. They emerged in part due to decades of policies that confined poor households, especially poor black ones, to those economically isolated areas. The federal government concentrated public housing in the segregated and inner city neighborhoods while subsidizing metropolitan sprawl and failing to create affordable housing for low-income families and minorities in rapidly developing suburbs, cutting them off from decent housing, decent educational, and decent economic opportunities. Although the city acknowledged the desperate need for more than 2,000 new units of affordable housing per year in the early 2000s, only about 100 units were being built per year in 2000 to 2002. Something had to be done, and community organizing was our answer. The establishment of the PICO chapter of Faith in Community, today known as Faith in the Valley, came to Fresno in 2003 with the conviction that the power in people is greater than the people in power. In May 2004, Faith and Community chartered 2 buses, took Fresno Mayor Alan Autry, council members Henry Perea Jr., Brad Castillo, community leaders, clergy, local tenants on a housing tour to witness in person what conditions of misery that some of our neighbors were living in. This is what we saw. And this is what we saw: unhealthy living conditions, moldy and old carpets, broken and inoperable water and light fixtures, the presence of rodents and insects. And immediately after, Mayor Autry addressed the community and enlisted Faith in the Valley's support to create more affordable housing. In July 2004, Faith and Community created the Fresno Housing Alliance. And in February 2005, the Fresno Housing Alliance sponsored a community forum, What's Up with Affordable Housing in Fresno, at Hope Lutheran Church with over 150 participants. The People's Housing Summit was then held in October 2005. 325 residents raised voices and visions out of Fresno's housing crisis, marking the beginning of our organizing process to mobilize and create the needed change. As Dr. Cornel West tells us, change happens when enough people bring enough power and pressure to bear. It's public pressure that creates the political will to do the right thing. In 2005, some progress began to be made, but the Blue Ribbon Commission's goal of 10,000 affordable housing units by 2010 did not materialize or even come close. We've been waiting too long. From his jail cell in Birmingham, Alabama in 1963, Dr. King wrote, "Frankly, I have yet to engage in a direct action campaign that was well-timed in the view of those who have not suffered unduly from the diseases of poverty and homelessness and segregation. For years now, I have heard the word wait, and this wait has almost always meant never. We must come to see the justice too long delayed is justice denied, but we're on the move now." The new general plan in 2014 approved was a crowning achievement for residents, community organizers, and city leaders. For the first time in our city's history, it became the official plan for the city to have an equitable proportion of growth and investment focused on the central core, downtown, and other established neighborhoods along the bus rapid transit corridor. Other policies have continued over the last several years, so we're on the move now. You can be part of the movement by joining these key organizations that are listed on the slide and these organizing efforts. Support these organizations financially. Participate in the rallies and demonstrations. Join the tenants union if you are a renter. And let's stay on the move now. The effects of the lack of access to affordable housing on individuals and families include decreased discretionary income, increased stress levels, diminished children's academic performance and physical health, and decreased vitality and sustainability of neighborhoods and our entire regional economy. Although Fresno's Mayor April 22 housing strategy acknowledges the need for 17,500 affordable units by 2025 to meet the existing demand, we know we cannot depend on the housing industry by itself to fulfill these needs without some guidelines, such as inclusionary zoning ordinances, to ensure the development of sufficient housing stock affordable to individuals and families in our community at different levels of income. I applaud the mayor of Fresno's One Fresno vision and objectives. We do not have a scarcity of resources in this country. We have a scarcity of moral consciousness. We have a scarcity of public civic action, a scarcity of voter engagement, a scarcity, consequently, of political will to address the oppression of poverty, especially with regard to affordable housing. The Fresno County rental market is a $1 billion industry. Every month in Fresno, tenants pay an estimated $135 million in rent, and the public and private sector landlords in order to secure their homes. That's $1.6 billion in Fresno County every year. The Here to Stay report identified 46 different recommendations to mitigate displacement and keep people in their homes, including rent stabilization, just cause eviction and protection, and the right to counsel. To increase funding available to the National Housing Trust Fund, we need to cap the home mortgage interest deduction at $500,000. If you're paying more than $500,000 in interest on your principal home, you don't need a tax write-off. And we can use that money to fund these other things. We are reminded, while the least of these are becoming the most of us in the United States today, we must realize the power of 140 million people living in poverty, low income, and low wealth conditions. And they represent 42% of the American population, 35% of the voting electorate. And we have to differentiate being pro-life from being pro-birth. Because if you are truly pro-life, then when you love people, you must hate the oppression they are enduring. You must embrace your neighbor. True prayer is not a noun. It is a verb that must be manifested in action to address injustice, comfort others, create social change, particularly for the last, the least, the lost, the left out, and the looked over. And in conclusion, we are reminded, I am hopeful today. I am inspired by this service. I am inspired by your presence and this congregation's commitment. I am also inspired and reminded by the words of anthropologist Margaret Mead and the sociologist Martin Luther King Jr. to never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. And though the arc of the moral universe is long, it bends towards justice. Realize that when you are involved in social change work, it's generational work. You are planting seeds for a tree under whose shade you may never sit. It's not time to give up. It's time to step up, to show up, to stand up, to speak up. Be that agent of change that you want to see in your community. And together, let's create that beloved community and a better Fresno. Can I get an amen?
One, two, three, four.
She calls out to the man on the street, "Sir, can you help me? It's cold and I've nowhere to sleep. Is there somewhere you can tell me?" Looks down, doesn't look back. He pretends he can't hear her, starts to whistle as he crosses the street, seems embarrassed to be there. Oh, think twice. It's just another day for you and me in paradise. Oh, think twice. It's just another day for you, you and me in paradise. Think about it. She calls out to the man on the street. He can see she's been crying. She's got blisters on the soles of her feet. She can't walk, but she's trying. Oh, think twice, 'cause it's another day for you and me in paradise. Oh, think twice. It's just another day for you, you and me in paradise. Just think about it. Think about it. Think about it. Oh Lord, is there nothing more anybody can do? Oh Lord, there must be something you can say. You can tell from the lines on her face. You can see that she's been there, probably been moved on from every place, 'cause she didn't fit in there. Oh, think twice, 'cause it's another day for you and me in paradise. Oh, think twice. It's just another day for you, you and me in paradise. Just think about it. Just think about it. Just think about it. It's just another day for you and me in paradise. It's just another day for you and me in paradise. It's just another day for you and me in paradise.
Thank you for the music and the sermon. That was wonderful, very thoughtful. For me, this church has been a lifesaver. I had been wandering in a spiritual wilderness, wondering why the religious connections I had made in other venues didn't quite fit. I learned from them, and yet I felt something was missing. I arrived here at this church, and I have grown spiritually and have felt loved. I have had the opportunity to serve gratefully and to work for justice causes. But as you know, it takes money to support this shared ministry for the Central Valley and beyond. I invite those on the virtual and alluvial campuses to support our live stream ministry with a financial gift this morning and invite those of you who have already pledged to make a special contribution. If you haven't yet, please give a first-time financial gift. And if you're viewing this service later, please make a financial gift as you are able. In this spirit, please join me in our words of offering. If not us, then who? If not open hearts, then what? If not now, then when? If not here, then where? If not generously, then how? If not us, then who? Here's a slide showing how you can make a financial contribution right now on our virtual campus, or if you're on the Alluvial Avenue campus, you can always drop cash or a check into the basket or deed to a house on your way out of the sanctuary, or you can share generously right this moment by using Cash App. Just send your contribution to $UU Fresno. That's $UU Fresno. And if you're watching this at a later time, you can also give through Cash App or mail a check. May this church continue to be worthy of the many different forms of our gifts. I am truly grateful for this opportunity to speak with you today, and I embrace wholeheartedly the words of Dr. Jandian. His words encourage me to continue to be grateful and to provide service whenever and wherever I am able. And now, a new cause. As we prepare to end our service and enter into our afternoon, please join us in our extinguishing words, led by Karen and Troy.
Extinguimos esta llama, pero no la luz de la verdad, el calor de comunidad o el fuego de nuestro compromiso. Estos los llevaremos en el corazón. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts.
Thank you, Lisa. Before I offer the closing words, followed by our song of benediction, I have just a few reminders. Sunday services and our Children's Sunday programming continue for one more week as Reverend Tim leads our annual summer jazz service. After July 3rd, on the next 4 Sundays, July 10th, 17th, 24th, and 31st, there will be no services on our Alluvial Avenue service to give our Sunday staff a much-needed chance to rest and renew. While on our virtual campus, we are going to offer links to attend virtual services at other Unitarian Universalist congregations around the country. Then our Sunday services and children programming return on Sunday, August 7th, as our new church year begins. To exit the sanctuary, please allow the socially distanced folks to leave first through the side doors. Then everyone else is welcome to exit through the doors of your choice. Dr. Jandian and I would appreciate the opportunity to greet you in the receiving line outside on the side of the courtyard. You have multiple options after service. Option 1, our coffee hour, which today we are renaming our communal outdoor sauna, which will be in the courtyard, hopefully under the shade of trees. Please join us there. And a gentle reminder to long-term members and friends. It is a sacred practice to talk with and welcome our visitors and guests. Good morning, hello, and then walking away does not suffice, especially if someone is looking for connection. We have a habit of sitting at our tables with people we know, which leaves our visitors and guests feeling left out. Option 2, if you would like to engage in a facilitated discussion about today's service and sermon topic, please join Bill Reganini at our sermon discussion table, which will be outside of the sauna and instead inside in our air-conditioned sanctuary. We especially invite you to join us if you're new or newish, as social hour can be overwhelming when you don't know who people are. Our sermon conversation table can make that easier for you. You can ask any questions you have about Unitarian Universalism or about the Unitarian Universalist Church of Fresno. Option 3, our meet and greet with Karen Polnitz, incoming director of Lifelong Learning, will take place in the children's classroom. Karen's meet and greet is open to all, but we extend a special invitation to parents, grandparents, and guardians of our kiddos. Refreshments will be served in this informal chance to talk with Karen, who, after 5 years as a worship associate and cherished church member, assumes this new full-time position on our church staff. That's in the children's classroom. A gentle reminder that our Norelma Walker Youth Library is open to all after the service, and all books can be borrowed and taken home. Last but not least, we have a tradition of gently welcoming anyone who is with us for the first, second, or third time. This is our way of showing our appreciation to you for being with us this morning. So if this is your first, second, or third time with us, could you please stand for a moment? We won't leave you standing for long. Invite the rest of the congregation to stand, to rise in body or spirit for our closing words, followed by a song of benediction. Oops, sorry, got lost. As you proceed to your afternoon activities, remember and send blessings and peace to those who do not have homes to live in. Perhaps make a commitment to do something. My family and I try to deliver food to unhoused people in Sacramento and Elk Grove every couple of months. May you continue to feel blessed and at peace as we end this service. May it be so. Blessed be. Amen.
1, 2, 3, 4.